I want to share with you an opportunity that I had this past weekend. I was invited to participate in a cold plunge with life coach Dan Missen here in Belgium. I want to tell you, it was an amazing experience. I had such a benefit from getting into this cold plunge. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's an ice bath at 4 degrees Celsius or 39 degrees Fahrenheit, depending upon where you're watching this from. And the idea is to submerge yourself into the cold water, and it's a chance not to challenge yourself, but maybe get in touch with who you are and maybe meet your limits. And so that's what this gave me the opportunity to do. And I'd like to share with you what that was like. So first, let me start off with how this occurred. The way it was set up was we met in this cabin. It was in a nice foresty area. And so you were really in touch with nature. And it was a group of people who didn't know each other. And we got in. We started moving. The idea was to build up the energy. And so as we started building up the energy, moving around, getting the blood flowing, we then took the time to pause and transition into getting to know one another. And so before we even knew who anybody was, we just started moving as a group and kind of connecting in movement and dance and whatever. And it got the energy really, really going. And then we got to know each other by name. We got to know why we all came there and what we were looking to get out of it. And it was really enriching to connect with people who you've never met before, but you share a commonality. And we were all there to participate in this very personal, very deep experience of a cold plunge. And so once we went through the energy building, once we went through the community connection, we then went into dynamic breathing. And so we laid down on yoga mats. The mood was nice. Calm music was being set. And the idea was to start working on different types of breathing. So it was a breathwork exercise. We started off with a 4-second inhale, 8-second exhale, and then maybe a pause for 5 seconds before we went on to the next exhale. And the idea was to build slow oxygenation and calm breathing without being overwhelmed by anything. And this was a really useful tool, especially when it got us into the cold bath, which I'll talk about in a second. But the idea was to give you a sense of control over your breathing. The next session was 5 rounds of conscious connected breathing, which is there's no pause between the inhale and the exhale. And so it's just this constant circular breath. You do it at different speeds. So it's like a slow speed where you're then there's a faster one where and the idea is to oxygenate yourself and increase your breath, increase your heart rate, increase that dynamicity in your body. And then you do a big inhale, exhale, and hold. And the idea is to then keep yourself deoxygenated for a long time to get yourself accustomed to these changes in breath, to get yourself accustomed to these changes in physiology. We ran through that 5 sessions, and I will tell you, at a certain moment, your face starts to vibrate. You start to get a different sense in your body of what it's like, and it can go all the way down to your toes, your fingertips. Your whole body can have this kind of vibrational sensation in it. But what's interesting is it can be both off-putting and a bit scary, and at the same time, comforting. Because 1, you're inducing these changes in your body and you're feeling them, but 2, you're inducing them. And so you also have this kind of sense of control because at a given point in time, if you're not feeling well and you stop, you can actually stop it and control the process. And fortunately, Dan was there in case anybody suffered from some kind of anxiety or didn't feel well, to go over and make the person feel safe. And so it's not like you were just abandoned and told to do this and it was, figure it out. You were walked through and accompanied at every step of the way, and it was an amazing experience to just go through the breathing. Once we got through the breathing, that was the part where you really felt the hesitations and fears set in, because you see 40 kilos of ice sitting in a tub of water. And at that moment, you're like, okay, this is real. And it maybe for some people, it doesn't seem like a big deal, ice water. But I mean, I think most of us know what it's like to get into pool water. And as you go in and it's just cool, you have that hesitation to go in. Well, when it's 4 degrees, it's a bigger And I can tell you when it was time to go in and to decide what we were going to do, it was pretty intense. But I will say this experience gave me an opportunity to think about emotions in a new way. And maybe it's something that I said, but in the past, or I've said in other sections, but it's really interesting to take this real life experience of a cold plunge and apply it to emotions, because I got to experience it in real time. I'm going to connect it to this, and I hope this makes sense. Sometimes we have this impression that people around us cause us to behave and feel and act a certain way. And sometimes people blame us for making them feel and act a certain way. I can tell you that after this experience, we have a lot more control over what we're experiencing and how we respond to it. And this type of experience can help give you more access to that. And so I'll walk you through the process. You had this big energy build up in the beginning. You had the breath work to get you onto the next stage, connection with the community. And then you walk up to this tub of ice water. And at that moment, you have a choice. Do I step in, or do I say, no, this isn't for me? And every step of the way, you have that same choice. You put one foot in. Is this for me? Or am I done? And you put the second foot in, and you can feel it. And you're saying to yourself, what do I do now? And as you lower yourself in, and you can feel it build up, and your body reacts, and your breath gets taken away from you, and you go into a state of emergency, a state of survival, and you have a choice again. Do I stay or do I go? And as you sit there and give yourself the space and time to adjust, adapt, and not react, but choose what you're going to do. You choose where it's going to go. And you're responsible for the duration. You're responsible for the time. You're responsible for what happens next. No one else. Just you. You get this moment of clarity. You get this moment of serenity where you realize, regardless of your environment, you're the one in charge. You're the one in control. Regardless of how you feel treated, regardless of what your body is doing, it's just input. It's just information for you to decide what you're going to do with it. And so I can tell you that as I sat there in the very first little bit, it was overwhelming and I didn't know what I was going to do. But then as I sat there and I let my mind take control, I actually made a conscious decision each step of the way to say, no, I'm okay. No, I'm fine. No, this is all right. The way I was being impacted by my environment had very little to do with what I chose to do next. And so I think this is a very powerful experience. I think this is a very powerful tool for you to learn a lot about what you're feeling and how it's not the same thing as a story that you have going in your mind. Because oftentimes we have that experience of really fast time between what somebody does around us or to us and how we process it and feel about it, and then how we behave. Now, clearly there's exceptions about where there's limits to this. But if we talk about just normal everyday interactions, relationships, couples, friendships, work, there's a lot of times where somebody responds or acts or behaves in a certain way and we feel it under attack. We feel defensive. We feel criticized. Sometimes it impacts something that we value or has a big meaning to us. Through this cold plunge, it gives you the time and space to be able to look at your thoughts and look at your body and look at what's going on and create the space and say, all right, what can I really say about this? And what do I know to be true? And you can apply that into these types of situations in your life where you do feel triggered, you do feel activated, but you can take a step and sit back and say, okay, how much of this is true? How much of this actually has bearing on me? And what can I choose to do differently? The ability to learn how to not react and respond in the ways that you want to gives you a license for authenticity. It gives you the space to have a different experience, to have the kind of experiences that you want. And so for anybody who's interested in learning more about this process, please like and subscribe to this video, follow us on YouTube, Anybody who's interested in exploring this dynamic about emotions in more detail, please join the school community. And we look forward to hearing what your experiences are and what you think about this. Cold plunge was absolutely amazing, and it helped me really realize that what we're feeling is not the same thing as the story we tell ourselves. I look forward to meeting you all and hearing your experiences.